On the Mid-Autumn Festival, I made mooncakes myself and waited for my girlfriend to come back. The bell of the evening gala on TV rang, and fireworks bloomed in the night sky outside the window. I waited and waited, but she never showed up. It wasn't until noon the next day that she walked in, wearing the same clothes as yesterday, a smile on her face. She was still on the phone with Wei Yuan. "I'm home safe. I'll spend the National Day holiday with you next time, too." Seeing me sitting in the living room, she instinctively frowned and took out a box of peanut mooncakes from her bag. "A mid-autumn gift for you. Did you prepare my share?" I gently pushed it back. "Thank you, but no need. I'm allergic to peanuts. And the gift I prepared for you this year is to set you free." When Xiao Lulu came home, I was packing the baked mooncakes into boxes and sealing them. Seeing me sitting in the living room, she frowned instinctively. "You're not going to look for a job, just sitting around at home all day." I ignored her, put the boxes of mooncakes into bags, and prepared to go out. She stopped me without a word, raising her head domineeringly. "What are you taking them away for? Leave them there, and let me have a taste." If it had been yesterday, I would have been overjoyed, letting her sit on the sofa, and then selecting the best mooncakes, cutting them, and presenting them to her on a plate. But today, I simply pulled my arm away from her hand, adorned with meticulously manicured nails. I refused without any emotion. "These are all divided. There's no share for you." Xiao Lulu frowned her beautiful eyebrows. "Isn't it the Mid-Autumn Festival? How can there be no share for me? Every year you make mooncakes for me by hand. How can there be none this year?" Like a pebble dropped into a calm lake, a ripple stirred. A wave of emotion surged through my heart. So she remembered. In our 5 years of love, we spent every holiday, big and small, together. Especially the Mid-Autumn Festival. Xiao Lulu said it was a festival representing reunion, and the family should be together. So every Mid-Autumn Festival, I would turn down all invitations, bake mooncakes at home by hand, and spend it with Xiao Lulu alone. Seeing that I didn't respond, Xiao Lulu raised her head in sudden realization. "So you're jealous, Duan Huaichuan. But I told you long ago, Wei Yuan just transferred to Hansheng. As his friend, I should take care of him. You know how lonely it is to be alone in a foreign land during the holidays, how sad it must be." I nodded. "That makes sense. Then you should spend all 3 days of your mid-autumn holiday with him. Don't let him be too sad." Xiao Lulu was stunned, not expecting to hear such words from me. She stared at me, then suddenly burst into laughter and took out a box of mooncakes from her bag. She reached out and waved it in front of me, her lips curling into a smile. "Okay, don't be jealous anymore. This is the mid-autumn gift I prepared for you. We agreed to exchange gifts every holiday. I always remember. You can give me my share now." The mooncake box was crumpled, obviously tossed into the bag without much care. The bright peanut characters on the packaging were a bit glaring. I didn't take it and gently pushed it back. "Thank you, but no need. I'm allergic to peanuts." Xiao Lulu's smile stiffened for a moment, and then she explained to me with some embarrassment, her voice carrying a rare hint of nervousness. "I'm sorry, Huaichuan, I forgot." Seeing me stand up, Xiao Lulu reached out to grab me, but I avoided her arm and passed her by. As I walked to the gate of the community, looking down at the several bags of mooncakes in my hands, I suddenly realized something. I forgot to tell her. The mid-autumn gift I prepared for Xiao Lulu this year was to set her free. The brothers from the team gathered together, teasing me about the mooncakes I was holding. "Yesterday we asked you to come out for drinks with your sister-in-law, but you didn't. I thought something was up, but turns out you were baking mooncakes at home. What? Are you really going to give up your career to be a stay-at-home husband and not compete anymore?" I took a sip of my drink, bowing my head. I haven't touched alcohol in a long time, and a sip of baijiu felt a little spicy and bitter going down. "No, I'm planning to make a comeback." My brother was still patting my shoulder, his words full of anger and disappointment. "I'm telling you, you really don't need to hang yourself on one tree. You have millions of female fans, if not tens of millions. It's not like Xiao Lulu saved your life, making you give up your career and future." As he spoke, he suddenly froze, realizing what I had just said, and his eyes instantly widened. "Duan Huaichuan, you finally came to your senses and are coming back to compete." The brothers who were drinking all stopped what they were doing and gathered around, some putting their arms around my shoulders, others slapping their thighs, their expressions showing undisguised joy at my return. The group got drunk, ordered a lot of alcohol, and after finishing it all, sprawled out on the chairs without any regard for their image, tapping chopsticks on bowls and plates, and humming off-key. I recognized it. It was our team's BGM, the one that fans had custom-made for the team after we won the championship last time. I was half lying on the chair, the bright light shining in my eyes, so dazzling that it stung. I reached out, wanting to grasp the source of the light. In the end, I let my hand fall weakly, covering my eyes. In a moment that no one noticed, tears flowed down my cheeks, dampening the clothes on my chest. I just felt a sudden, intense pain in my heart. I'm a lonely orphan, and before I met Xiaolulu, I was always like a duckweed in the sea of people, living without roots. It wasn't until I met her that I felt like I had roots, and being with her anywhere was home. But this time, I felt that the exquisitely decorated house was empty, and it didn't feel like home at all. I spent the night in a hotel. Xiaolulu called me many times, but I didn't answer, nor did I go home. The next day, I went to the league to submit my application for a comeback. It happened to be the transfer period at the end of the season, and upon hearing the news of my return, many well-known teams extended offers to me. My former team also found out, and the coach contacted me immediately, strongly inviting me to return. I lowered my eyes, somewhat hesitant. The coach and I have known each other for many years, and he directly asked me if I had any concerns. I tugged at the corner of my mouth. Maybe I've been in the same city for too long. I want to go somewhere farther. The farther away from Hansheng, the better. I originally thought the coach would be troubled, but unexpectedly, he slapped his thigh and laughed on the spot. Haven't you heard? Our team was acquired by a big boss and is changing home grounds. Next season, we're moving to Bincheng. Thinking of the thousands of kilometers between Hansheng and Bincheng, this time I didn't hesitate any longer and immediately signed a contract with the coach. Before I left, the coach patted me on the shoulder. Pack up your house and everything. This time, when you leave, you won't be coming back except to play matches. When I got home, I ran into Xiaolulu, who was also returning. We were the only two people in the rising elevator. I was still wearing yesterday's clothes, stained with the smell of beer, liquor, and cigarettes, which wasn't very pleasant. Xiaolulu frowned, a flicker of disgust in her eyes, and stood a little further away from me. She covered her nose, and her sharp voice rang out in the elevator. Duan Huaichuan, you're really something. You tell me to go keep Wei Yuan company, but isn't this really just you being jealous? I want to keep Wei Yuan company during the day, and you didn't come home at night. Weren't you just giving me the cold shoulder? I glanced at Xiaolulu's outfit. Her clothes didn't look new either, so I casually asked, What about you? I didn't come home last night. Were you home? Xiaolulu suddenly flushed, as if I'd stepped on a sore spot. She angrily shouted at me. Here we go again. Duan Huaichuan, you're always like this. I'm talking to you about something, but you always try to shut me up with something else. Is that fun, Duan Huaichuan? My head was heavy after the hangover, and after running around all day, I was physically and mentally exhausted. I didn't have the energy to argue with Xiaolulu. Okay, then I won't say anything. I won't ask. I shouldn't interfere with your personal space. These were words Xiaolulu had said countless times, but when they came from my mouth, she was stunned for a moment, and her expression softened. Her shoulders relaxed, as if she had retracted all her sharp edges towards me, and she wanted to take my arm as we walked out of the elevator. But I dodged her, stepped past her, opened the door first, walked straight into the master bedroom, and locked the door behind me. Warm water poured down from the shower head. After the shower, my mind cleared a little. It wasn't time to sleep yet, so I went to the study to find the property deed, thinking of contacting a real estate agent in advance to deal with the house. But in the bookcase, I saw a photo frame with a picture of Wei Yuan and Xiaolulu. It looked very new. I had never seen it before, so Xiaolulu must have put it there yesterday when I wasn't home. In the photo, Wei Yuan had his arm intimately around Xiaolulu, and Xiaolulu was looking up at him, smiling brightly. The two of them were beyond the social distance between friends. I put the photo frame aside and turned it over, only to see Wei Yuan's inscription on the back. You are my never-fading love. I smiled, not minding. Wei Yuan was used to doing little tricks to make me jealous. He always deliberately acted intimately with Xiaolulu in front of me, and then, when I got angry, he would pretend to be innocent and say, Lulu and I are good friends. You can't stop Lulu's normal social interactions, can you? Whenever this happened, Xiao Lulu would invariably stand in front of Wei Yuan, looking at me with disappointment. Duan Huaichuan, can't you be a little more magnanimous? Can't you tolerate Wei Yuan at all? Now that I think about it, she had a point. Love is a matter between two people, not a game for three. Since Xiao Lulu wanted to be with Wei Yuan so much, then I would show my magnanimity as a man and set her free. This three-person love was too tiring. I choose to quit. After entrusting the real estate agent with the sale of the house, I spent the next few days methodically packing my luggage. The Mid-Autumn Festival holiday ended. Wei Yuan returned to his team for training, and Xiao Lulu finally remembered me. She uncharacteristically knocked on my door. The moment she opened it and saw my empty room, she was somewhat surprised. Duan Huaichuan, what kind of runaway game are you playing now? You were the one who told me to go be with Wei Yuan, so why are you throwing a tantrum now? I shook my head and said lightly, it's not what you think. Then what is it? Open the door and let me in first. Xiao Lulu tried to squeeze in without waiting for a reply, half of her body already inside the bedroom. Seeing this, I had no choice but to reluctantly release the handle and let her in. Sitting on the edge of the bed, Xiao Lulu confidently hooked her finger at me, her eyes filled with allure and provocation. Huaichuan, we haven't done it in a long time. We finally have some free time. Tonight I want. I opened my mouth and interrupted her. I have plans tonight. I have to go out. Xiao Lulu immediately raised her eyebrows in displeasure. What plans? Going out for drinks again? I told you I don't like the smell of smoke and alcohol on you. It stinks. She still spoke to me so self-righteously, as if the one-sided Cold War of the past few days had never existed. She stood up, took my arm, and pressed herself tightly against me. I don't care if you're going to dinner, you have to take me with you. I have to supervise you and make sure you don't drink. Seeing her determined attitude, I had a bit of a headache. The appointed time was approaching, and I didn't want to waste time arguing with her, so I nodded in agreement. Xiao Lulu instantly beamed, ran to her bedroom to get dressed, and sat in front of the vanity, happily applying her makeup, occasionally glancing at me to make sure I hadn't left her behind. Seeing her like this, I couldn't quite understand. In the past, when I had small gatherings with my friends, I didn't want Xiao Lulu to be alone at home, so I would always ask her if she wanted to join. But she would always sit on the sofa without looking up, reluctantly pouting. What's the point of eating and chatting with a bunch of guys? Not everyone is like Wei Yuan, who can make girls feel humorous and interesting. She said this while looking down at her phone, her fingers flying across the screen, chatting enthusiastically with Wei Yuan. But it didn't matter anymore. There was no point in thinking about things I couldn't understand. Anyway, I was going to bincheng to leave Xiao Lulu completely. By then, she would probably be with Wei Yuan, smiling happily. Not like when she was with me, unhappy every day, feeling wronged. This time, the entire team was relocating to Bincheng. The private room booked was huge, and all the well-known clubs in Hanqing were present. As expected, Wei Yuan also came with his team. Seeing Xiao Lulu and me arrive together, Wei Yuan's face showed a hurt expression. He didn't speak, just stared directly at Xiao Lulu. Xiao Lulu hadn't expected Wei Yuan to be there either. She lowered her head, not daring to meet his gaze, and tightly clutched my sleeve, a little flustered and helpless. But I've been dating her for 5 years, and I could easily sense from her actions that Xiao Lulu was afraid of hurting Wei Yuan. I patted the back of her hand and released my arm from her grip. Go ahead, go sit with Wei Yuan. Don't let him be sad alone. Xiao Lulu looked up in surprise, her eyes filled with disbelief, yet sparkling with obvious joy. She seemed relieved, and her tone became cheerful. Then I'll go over there first, Huaichuan. I just feel that Wei Yuan recently transferred to Hanqing and doesn't know his new teammates well. It's awkward for him to sit there alone. I interrupted her understandingly. It's okay. Go if you want to. Xiao Lulu nodded, and before walking over, she seemed to remember something, reached out, grabbed my sleeve, and shook it gently. After dinner, let's go home together. I originally wanted to refuse, but suddenly remembered that I would be leaving with the team in 3 days, and it was time to make things clear with Xiao Lulu. So I nodded, smiled, and watched her go, saying with a smile, okay, we'll go home together tonight. After a few rounds of drinks, the atmosphere became lively. Unlike the small world of Charlulu and Wei Yuan, several of us from different teams, fueled by alcohol, mentioned that our team was moving to Bincheng, and a group of grown men couldn't hold back their tears. The captain of Wei Yuan's team stood up, tapped his glass on the table, and when the room quieted down, he said loudly, "Today is a farewell drink. DT team, who has fought alongside us for many years, is moving to Bincheng. Although transportation is convenient now, and it's quick to go to any city, we all have to immerse ourselves in training at the club. Apart from meeting during each season's matches, it will be really difficult in the future. Maybe the next time we get together like this, chatting and fooling around, will be when we retire." He raised his glass to me and downed it in one gulp. "Captain Duan, I toast you. Don't forget the brotherhood when you go to Bincheng. We are rivals on the field, but brothers off the field." I raised my glass in return and also drank it down. Everyone was moved by this scene and raised their glasses together. The sounds of clinking glasses and conversation arose, and everyone drank a lot. Only Charlulu stared at me blankly, ignoring Wei Yuan's repeated attempts to start a conversation, and remained silent until the end. After the gathering, people from various teams left together. Wei Yuan still wanted to say something to Charlulu, but she waved him off perfunctorily, telling him to say it next time. Both of them had drunk alcohol and stood by the roadside, waiting for a taxi. I kicked the pebbles under my feet, and Charlulu looked at me silently. The atmosphere was momentarily quiet. After a long time, Charlulu spoke first. Her voice trembled, sounding extremely fragile. "Duan Huaichuan, you're back? And you're going to benching with the team? Why didn't you tell me anything?" I smiled and shook my head. "There was no need to tell you. You were busy with Wei Yuan at that time." Charlulu was stunned for a moment, then lowered her head, her body trembling. Tears streamed down her cheeks and dripped onto the ground. I sighed and handed her a tissue. She always cried so easily, as if she had tear incontinence, so I also got used to carrying a pack of tissues with me so I could hand them to her at any time. Charlulu took it in a daze, but just as I was about to step back, she suddenly hugged me, her tears falling on my shoulder. Her voice was muffled. "Duan Huaichuan, I have something to tell you." I smiled, so Charlulu was prepared too. No wonder she was unusually insistent on going home with me today. My voice was light. "Okay, I have something to tell you too. You go first, then you go first. Let's say it together." "Okay." The next second, two voices rang out at the same time. "Charlulu, let's break up. Duan Huaichuan, let's get married." Eyes locked. Charlulu's eyes widened in surprise, and I, too, looked down at her in disbelief. Xiao Lulu's pupils contracted, staring at me in disbelief. Her lips parted and closed, her voice trembling intensely. "Duan Huaichuan, you want to break up with me? Why so suddenly? You never mentioned this to me before." I smiled, trying to appear calm and indifferent. But when I spoke, my vulnerability and reluctance were exposed. "I don't want to either, Xiao Lulu. How can 5 years of feelings be let go of so easily? But a 3-person love is too crowded. I'm already very, very tired, and I want to quit." My eyes were fixed on Xiao Lulu, her figure clearly reflected in my pupils. I was looking at her, but through her I was seeing someone else. I thought of Xiao Lulu 5 years ago. At that time, the team was still struggling, esports was considered a frivolous pursuit, and everyone around me was pessimistic. Only Xiao Lulu gently hugged me when I was at my lowest point, warming me with her soft body. She gave everything to me. Then she leaned close to my ear and said, "Duan Huaichuan, you're the best esports player in the world, and also the best boyfriend in my heart, Xiao Lulu's. Others don't believe in you, but I do. I've always believed in you the most." Xiao Lulu's wholehearted support was like a beam of light in the dark. From then on, the homeless wanderer, guided by this light, had a direction to go home. Seeing my nostalgic expression, Xiao Lulu also quieted down, which was unusual for her. She also stood there looking at me, and in her eyes, there was also a young man just starting out, gradually overlapping with my figure. After a long time, Xiao Lulu took a step forward. She looked very nervous, her fingers gripping my arm, turning pale from the excessive force. "Duan Huaichuan, we were so good before. Why can't we go back to the way things were? If you think I'm too close to Wei Yuan, I can tell him now that we'll never contact each other again. Let's get married, Duan Huaichuan, and just stay together like this for the rest of our lives, okay?" I'm already used to your presence. I can't imagine life without you. Towards the end, Xiao Lulu actually curled up in my arms, sobbing uncontrollably. I glanced at her in surprise. I didn't expect that I would be so important in her heart. But Xiao Lulu, Yasuo is old, and I'm not the high-spirited person I used to be. Hearing this, Xiao Lulu cried even harder. She cried so fragilely, her eyes red and swollen like a little rabbit's. But even so, Xiao Lulu never let go of my hand, holding me tightly, as if she wanted to merge with me. Her body trembled constantly, as if in repentance and also as if apologizing to me. Duan Huaichuan, I was really wrong. I'll buy you lots of Yasuo skins. I'll buy you his complete set. The things I missed with you, I'll make up for them one by one. I promise. I'll never miss another moment in your life where you need me. Seeing Xiao Lulu in this extremely humble state, my heart twitched, and I couldn't help but sigh. If only she had known this earlier. Why did she do what she did? This summer, Yasuo got a new skin called Foreseen. It was the 1-year anniversary of my retirement. When I saw the moment in the cinematic where Yasuo fell to the ground amid a hail of arrows, my heart clenched. Suddenly, I remember myself when I first started playing League. Back then, the team was just starting and I didn't have any money. The young man controlled the classic Yasuo, striving to achieve the best results in every battle. Xiao Lulu and I met after that team match. She sneaked past security into the backstage area and looked at me with bright, sparkling eyes. Duan Huaichuan, your Yasuo is so amazing, really cool. Can we add each other as friends? I've been following you for a long time. Inexplicably, my heart trembled, and I accepted her friend request. Years later, when I called Xiao Lulu to the computer and pointed at the older Yasuo, reminiscing with her, she snorted disdainfully. Duan Huaichuan, can you stop being so childish? You're a grown man still watching cartoons. You're so out of touch with reality. I was stunned, an unbelievable sourness aching in my heart. I repeated again, the character on the screen is Yasuo. But Xiao Lulu interrupted me mercilessly. I told you I'm not watching. Can't you see I'm busy putting on makeup to go out? Then her eyes darted around, and she looked at me with sudden realization, a scornful laugh escaping her lips. Now I see why you suddenly called me over to watch this boring cartoon. It's because you know I have a date with Wei Yuan today, and you're deliberately trying to stall me. Duan Huaichuan, I'm not trying to be mean, but look at you being so petty. Are you even a man? I didn't hear the rest of what she said. Because Xiao Lulu had lost all patience, she turned and left cursing. On the screen, the animation of the elderly Yasuo getting up again and again, using his last ounce of strength to fight the war, continued. But off-screen, I was stunned, clutching my heart, feeling an unspeakable pain. Thinking of this, I sighed softly. Xiao Lulu, don't you know I already have all of Yasuo's skins? There was something else I didn't tell her. What I wanted to reminisce with her about was never that Yasuo had a new skin, but our youth that we could never return to. 5 years is too long. Long enough to get used to each other's existence, but also long enough to erode the love for each other. My voice fell, and Xiao Lulu finally stopped crying. She looked up at me, her eyes fixed on mine without blinking. Then I'll buy you other champion skins, okay? I'll buy you whatever champion you like, and I'll buy you all the skins you want in the future. I'll also go to all your matches after your comeback. Let's start over, okay? If it had been a little earlier, even before today, facing Xiao Lulu's self-deprecating attempt to salvage the situation, I would have stopped my steps to leave for her. But it was too late. I had submitted my comeback application to the league and signed a contract with the coach to rejoin the team. The house was listed for sale with an agent, my luggage was sent to Bincheng, and my flight was leaving in 3 days. Everything was settled, not subject to Xiao Lulu's will. I told her everything, one by one, and then, under her gaze with trembling pupils, I gently shook my head. It's too late, Xiao Lulu. Everything is beyond return. How could this be? Xiao Lulu's eyes widened in disbelief, repeating the words. There must be another way, right? Yes, there's a way. I can quit my job and go to Bincheng with you. Once we're there, we can start over. I'll buy a ticket on the same flight as you. After we land, we'll register immediately and have the wedding in Bincheng. We don't need a grand wedding, and we don't have to invite many people, just close friends. She clung to me like it was her last hope, repeating her plans over and over, staring at me without blinking, waiting for my agreement. She was like a puppy about to be abandoned by its owner, wagging its tail desperately, hoping to win back its owner's affection. Seeing Xia Lulu trying so hard to please me, my eyes welled up and tears fell uncontrollably. I pulled her up from the ground with force, but Xia Lulu refused to get up, stubbornly clutching my trouser leg. Duan Huaichuan, promise me first no breakup, okay? I don't want to break up with you. Just as we were at an impasse, the phone suddenly rang. Xia Lulu was stunned for a moment, but I suddenly felt incredibly relieved, gesturing to her. Aren't you going to answer the phone? If I remember correctly, that's Wei Yuan's special ringtone. He's calling you so late, there must be something important. Xia Lulu looked at me hesitantly, unsure whether to answer or not. I generously took a step back. Go ahead and answer it, it's already rung twice. Didn't you say that Wei Yuan is all alone in Hanqing with no one to take care of him, and he can only think of you when something happens? Xia Lulu's lips parted, then I'll just answer the phone first. But Duan Huaichuan, you can't leave. You can't leave me alone until we've talked this through. I nodded in agreement. It was an unconditional indulgence, but I didn't want to drag things out with Xia Lulu any longer. If we could settle it all at once, that would be best. I've waited for her countless nights when she didn't come home. So what's a few more minutes? Wei Yuan's voice came through the speakerphone. Lulu, I'm drunk, my head is spinning, I want to sleep, but I can't, and my stomach feels like I'm going to throw up. My whole body feels awful. I threw up everything I ate for dinner. I feel so terrible. I want to drink the porridge you make. Can you come and keep me company? Under the street lamp, I could clearly see a flicker of heartache in Xia Lulu's eyes. Probably because I was there. She fumbled to turn off the speakerphone, stepped away, and spoke to Wei Yuan in a low voice. I stood there quietly, occasionally looking down at my phone. The ride I ordered was almost here. Finally, after another 5 or 6 minutes, Xia Lulu hung up the phone and walked towards me with an apologetic expression. I'm sorry, Huaichuan, for making you wait so long. Wei Yuan isn't feeling well. He kept clinging to me and wouldn't let me hang up, so I comforted him a little longer. I didn't listen to her explanation and cut her off on an why. Are you going to discuss with me that you want to go and be with Wei Yuan? I heard you promise him just now. A flicker of embarrassment crossed Xia Lulu's face, and she opened her mouth to say something more. Just then, the car arrived, and I opened the door and sat in the back seat. Xia Lulu followed me and stood outside the car, but she didn't get in. She hesitated. Huaichuan, let's talk about our matter properly tomorrow. Tonight Wei Yuan needs someone to take care of him, I think. It's okay, you go, you don't have to tell me. Before she could react, I closed the car door first and told the driver to drive off quickly. Looking at myself sitting in the back seat, towards the inside, with space left for one person near the door, I smiled and shook my head. Look, Duan Huaichuan, you've softened your heart time and time again, giving Xia Lulu many chances, but she ignored them all, and still says you didn't wait for her. How could I not have waited? Clearly, even at this point, you still remember that you promised her that you would go home together tonight. When I got home, my vision was already blurred. Tonight was destined to be a sleepless night. Even though I hadn't slept a wink all night, I dragged my exhausted body to the living room early the next morning. Thinking that Charlulu might not have had breakfast when she returned, I made an extra portion for her. But after I finished my own breakfast, I sat in the living room waiting and waiting. It wasn't until the sun was high in the sky, and it was already noon, that Charlulu finally arrived. When she opened the door, I was sitting on the sofa, eating the breakfast I had made for her. Seeing me having porridge at noon, Charlulu's initially tense expression relaxed. She smiled, took off her shoes, and sat down next to me. She teased, Duan Huaichuan, you're having breakfast so late. You really woke up late. It's a good thing I didn't come back early, otherwise I would have had to wait for you, sleepyhead, all morning. Hearing her words, I raised my head and glanced at her indifferently. My face was expressionless as I stared at her, without saying a word. I kept looking at her, until she couldn't stand the strange scrutiny any longer. Then I turned my head away and continued eating my porridge. Duan Huaichuan, is it just because I said you woke up late? Why are you staring at me without saying anything? Or are you going to argue with me about Wei Yuan again? Didn't we already talk about it last night? You were the one who told me to go and accompany Wei Yuan. If you minded, you could have told me not to go. Charlulu became more and more agitated, pounding the coffee table with her hand, making loud thuds. The porridge in the bowl splashed out. Seeing the food scraps on the table, I lost my appetite and put down the spoon. I'm looking at you, not because of Wei Yuan, but because I'm wondering what kind of mindset you have to say such things. Don't you see the empty bowl next to you? That's my breakfast. This one I'm holding, I was going to eat it as lunch because I didn't see you from morning till noon. As my voice fell, the air suddenly became quiet. Charlulu was stunned for a moment, her gaze following mine. Only then did she realize that the bowl and spoon in front of me were her exclusive pink tableware. She suddenly fell silent. She lowered her head and didn't say a word, as if she knew she was wrong. I ignored her. After all this fuss, I no longer had the mood for a proper conversation. I stood up on my own, but Charlulu grabbed me. She looked up, her eyes filled with tears. Only then did I realize that she had been crying when she lowered her head. My tone softened involuntarily. What is it, Charlulu? She looked at me with red eyes and spoke tremblingly. Duan Huichuan, I really know I was wrong. I don't want us to argue because of Wei Yuan anymore. I'll delete him now, okay? Don't go. Please don't go. I don't want you to leave me. I was stunned for a moment, not expecting Charlulu to be so perceptive. After the surprise, however, came a sense of relief. After all, we had been together for 5 years, day and night. Each other's actions and habits were ingrained in our bones. How could she not notice? But I also felt a sense of sadness. If Charlulu could sense my mood change this time, then what about the many times before? She knew I was hurting, but she still left me to go to Wei Yuan, right? At this moment, I finally made up my mind and completely let go of Charlulu's hand. I firmly pulled her hand from my arm, took my packed suitcase from the bedroom, and stood at the door. Charlulu's eyes suddenly reddened. Duan Huichuan, what do you mean? We agreed to talk together. Are you going to leave me alone without saying goodbye? Facing Charlulu's fragile appearance, my heart still ached. But this time, I really wouldn't wait any longer. It means we're breaking up. You were the one who left me first, Charlulu. I've never broken my promise. And until today, I've been waiting. But I can't wait any longer, and I don't want to wait any longer. I've put the house up for sale with an agent. There's still some time before the handover date. You can stay if you want, or move out and find a place as soon as possible. There's nothing else. That's it. With that, I turned around, opened the door, and walked straight into the elevator. As I stood there, I saw Charlulu running towards me in her slippers. She was running so fast that one of her slippers fell off, but she didn't even care, running barefoot towards me. Her expression was panicked, tears streaming down her face, and she was shouting for me to wait for her, looking like she was about to break down at any second. But I simply, without hesitation, pressed the elevator's close button. In the hotel suite, my teammates were stunned to see me arrive with my suitcase. I said irritably, "What, have you never seen a breakup before? Come and help?" My teammates were taken aback. One of the more impulsive ones was about to speak, but was quickly silenced by a glare from a calmer one nearby. That night we drank a lot, everyone dropping what they were doing to be with me. We squatted on the floor, drinking beer, then baijiu, then red wine. I went to the bathroom to throw up again and again. Just when I thought I was going to get alcohol poisoning, I looked up and saw my haggard reflection in the mirror. Suddenly, tears started streaming down my face. A man of steel, I was hunched over, so vulnerable in the closed bathroom, sobbing uncontrollably. I woke up the next day with a splitting headache. Apparently, one of my teammates found me lying on the floor when he went to the bathroom, and they carried my dead-drunk body to bed. They also thoughtfully charged my phone. But as soon as I picked it up, I saw dozens of missed calls on the lock screen, all from Xiaolulu. Just as I was deleting those notifications, another call came in. I wanted to hang up, but my hand uncontrollably pressed accept. Xiaolulu's tearful voice came through. "Duan Huichuan, where did you go? I can't find you. I've been calling you, but you're not answering. It's been a whole day and night. Do you know how crazy I am? I'm really about to break down." Xiaolulu's voice was hoarse, clearly from crying constantly and not drinking any water. I sighed. "Don't look for me. Go boil some hot water for yourself. Your period is coming soon. Don't let your stomach get cold." There was silence on the other end. After half a minute, Xiaolulu started crying even harder, hiccuping uncontrollably. "Duan Huichuan, you still care about me? Why did you leave me alone? I've already deleted Wei Yuan. I promise I'll never argue with you again. If you don't believe me, check the messages. I sent you a screenshot of me deleting him. Please, Duan Huaichuan, tell me where you are, okay? I'll pack my things and come find you. We'll go to benching together and then get married. In the time you've been gone, I've realized that I really can't live without you. My life is already intertwined with yours. How can I live without you? Duan Huaichuan, please, I really can't be without you. We'll get married. I'll have a baby for you. We'll be together forever, never apart again, okay? She said many things brokenly, and I listened to it all carefully. Finally, when Xiao Lulu had said everything she could say and couldn't make up anything else, she was stunned to realize that I hadn't said a word. Her voice became trembling, and she asked nervously, Duan Huaichuan, say something? Why aren't you talking to me? If I said anything wrong, tell me. I can change anything. On the WeChat conversation, the screenshot showing Xiao Lulu and Wei Yuan were no longer contacts was very prominent. Rubbing the screen with my finger, I couldn't say what I was feeling at that moment. This was the result I wanted. I had told Xiao Lulu more than once that she was too close to Wei Yuan, and it made me uncomfortable. But the result came too late. The problem between Xiao Lulu and me was no longer something that could be solved by deleting Wei Yuan. A chasm of disappointment stood between us. I still loved her, but I could no longer bridge the distance between us. On the other end of the line, Xiao Lulu was still trying to persuade me. I lowered my eyes and silently hung up the phone. The next moment, Xiao Lulu called again, but I didn't answer, and I blocked her number. I carefully typed each word into the WeChat message box. Xiao Lulu, we can't go back to the way things were. Even if the pus is removed, the festering wound is still missing a chunk of flesh. It's like you said you'd buy me all of Yasuo's skins, but I'm no longer the young man who only played Yasuo. And Wei Yuan, after I leave, add him back. You two get along so well. You were so happy every day when you were with him. There's no need to sacrifice your happiness for me. The top of the message box showed that the other party was typing. Xiao Lulu's message came quickly. She refuted me excitedly. That's not true. I was only with Wei Yuan because it felt new. I've never loved him the way I love you. From beginning to end, you're the only one I've ever loved, Duan Huaichuan. She sent many messages, but I had said everything I needed to say. I didn't want to get involved anymore, and I didn't want to look anymore. Just as the top of the message box showed that the other party was typing again, I clicked on the chat history, scrolled through it all, and took a quick look at my past with Xiao Lulu. So many. There were so many chat records. It turned out that a long time ago, Xiao Lulu and I loved to chat so much, the records were so long that the phone lagged. Seeing the scenes of us chatting enthusiastically in the past, I couldn't help but be affected, and I smiled, my eyes crinkling. The next second, I clicked clear without hesitation. Whether it was the past, or what Xiao Lulu had just sent, all the chat records disappeared before my eyes. The message box was empty, restored to its original state. Then, I went into Xiao Lulu's moments and looked at the photo she had set as her background. The girl in the picture wore a flowing white dress, just like when I first met her 5 years ago. I reached out and waved at Xiao Lulu on the screen. Then, goodbye, Xiao Lulu. The next moment, I exited Moments, blocked, and then deleted Xiao Lulu from my contact list. On the day of boarding, Xiao Lulu, having somehow gotten wind of my departure, squeezed out from the crowd of fans seeing me off and rushed in front of me. She tightly grabbed my clothes, raised the plane ticket in her hand, and looked at me with tear-filled eyes. Duan Huaichuan, I won't let you leave me behind. I've resigned from my company and bought a ticket for the same flight as you. I'm going to benching with you. You promised you'd wait for me, you promised. Xiao Lulu's eyes were swollen, and it was clear she hadn't been having a good time these past few days either. I sighed and used my thumb to wipe away the tears from the corner of her eyes. As she looked up at me in surprise, I took a step back and said to her indifferently and cruelly, Sure, I have no right to stop you from going anywhere, but even if you come to Bincheng, I will live in the club and will not meet you, nor will I add you back to my contacts. Moreover, I will never get back together with you. Even so, are you still willing to come to Bincheng with me? Xiao Lulu widened her eyes in astonishment, her body even beginning to tremble. Duan Huaichuan, do you have to be so cruel? I'm willing to give up everything for you, and you still won't forgive me? I interrupted her. This has nothing to do with forgiveness. It's that I no longer believe you, Xiao Lulu. You want to come to benching with me. And then what? Then you'll still complain that I'm training all day and have no time to spend with you, that there's no freshness, no passion anymore. I retired once for you, but still couldn't save you. Did you ever think about how painful it is for a man to give up his dreams and career for love? Hearing this, Xiao Lulu became flustered, shaking her head desperately, repeatedly promising, "No, Duan Huaichuan, I really won't hurt you again. After this time, I will definitely cherish you and never be so intimate with Wei Yuan again." I shook my head. Forget it. Even if there's no Wei Yuan, there will still be Zhang Yuan, Li Yuan, Wang Yuan. The conflict between us has never been caused by just one Wei Yuan. Xiao Lulu opened her mouth blankly. Then what is it? It's that I'm planning for our future every day, but you only live in the present, thinking that I can't give you freshness and that we've lost happiness and excitement. But Xiao Lulu, have you ever thought about it? An apartment in the city center costs millions. A single beauty treatment for you costs 5 or 6,000. A bag you buy costs 20 or 30,000. If I don't work, can your 4,000 yuan monthly salary support you? The last shred of decency was completely torn away. Xiao Lulu's face turned pale, and she shook her head in panic. I'm sorry, Huaichuan, I really didn't think so much. I regret it. I really regret it this time. Look, I even bought a plane ticket to go with you. I'm serious this time. It's too late. The boarding announcement sounded, and I took the ticket from her hand and tore it to pieces. I'll have a friend transfer you the money for the ticket. Go back and get a good night's sleep. Don't be sad for me anymore. Find someone you like to be with. Don't be like me, always making you unhappy. After saying that, I turned around and left without hesitation, ignoring Xiao Lulu's frantic struggle to grab my hand. Behind me, Xiao Lulu was stopped by friends who came to help, forced to stand there. She watched my gradually receding back, squatted down in grievance, and burst into loud sobs. And I, in a place where she couldn't see, shed 2 lines of hot tears. Xiao Lulu, even though we are both bruised and battered in the end, I still love you very much. But I also know that we can no longer be together. Let these 5 years of relationship become a memory for you and me. This time, I am willing to set you free. End of full text.